Any questions?
I have one question first.
What would be the pros and cons of the city versus private industry handling the senior center?
Handling the senior center? Good question. What I would look for are the cities that run senior centers and don't run senior centers, and see how the cities who are running the senior centers do it. And then I would look at the economics of it. I think that money availability, organization, always on that we have seen throughout the state of California and in Hawaii, when it's run by the city, it's run very well. I have heard that there are some senior centers that are run by cities that are not. So I think what we have to do is look at the cities that have been rated well, the senior centers that have been rated well, and see how those cities are doing it. I don't think we should just crash into it and try to take it over. That's inappropriate. I think we have to, for me, I'm an evidence-based scientist practicing medicine, and you have to show me, like from Missouri. You got to show me. So it's a good question, not a simple answer, but there are ways to get to the answer.
Dr. Dorio, thank you for speaking today. Can you give an explanation of the difference between DialARide and this autonomous car idea that you'd like to do?
Sure. Well, going back to the autonomous car, that's self-run. And, you know, someone would have to, if there was a program, if you bought the car and could afford it, you're in great shape. But my thought is that we try to get a group of people who will be able to access that car, like 20 seniors, and use the telephone and somebody who might be in a city position to be able to coordinate all that. The DialARide I don't know a whole lot about, but I do know that there are good things to it, bad things about it. It costs, I think, $2 a ride. Sometimes it's not on time. There are good things about that, too, that are convenient but also inconvenient. What I'm looking for is the technology that is out there, and the autonomous car has that. And when I saw the article in the Los Angeles Times earlier this week that said that other than Google developing this, and it was a Toyota Prius that they use, that other car companies are going to get into this. And, you know, I was hoping maybe $50,000 for an autonomous Prius. I don't know. But in the long run, for some of the seniors, they would rather have the convenience and timing of a car than access. And
okay, just for the record, DialARide works very well for our elderly. I know many of them that use it, and they would not be anywhere without it. So
there's no doubt about that.
It's worked very well, and they haven't been charged.
Good, and I'm not saying that autonomous cars should take the place of DialARide. I have patients, and all my patients are house calls, but I have patients that don't like DialARide and have trouble with DialARide. Now, it could be just the patient themselves having the problems, but the majority of my patients like DialARide. So I think those people who like that can do that. But there are other people that can't do that. And the Prius has the ability, I think it's called Bronco, and you can actually, the seat in the driver's seat and also the passenger seat lift up and out, so you can transfer a senior can transfer from wheelchair into the car, or a walker into the car that way. So with DialARide, it's great because you sometimes will have an attendant that will help you also. But transportation is the key part of this. How we do it for our seniors, I really don't care as long as they have transportation. But in using the technology, I think it's important we keep looking at it and moving ahead. DialARide will be there, but I'll tell you, probably in 20 years there will not be a DialARide, but of course in 50 years there might not be an autonomous car. So I think we have to flow with what we have out there and try to make sure that as we're looking at the problems that our seniors face, that as part of transportation, we're looking at everything.
Dr.
Questions?
Dorio, yes.
Oh, yeah, Bert.
Yes, hi.
Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to say that Al is not the only city council candidate
Yes,
in the room.
you are.
So thank you. And I do appreciate your bringing these issues to the fore. Actually, elder issues and disabled issues are very much the forefront of my life. I've have two disabled brothers that have many times lived with me for extended periods of time. And I would like to mention that I don't know how well it's utilized, and I don't think it's necessarily been used, but the city does, in fact, have a registry for disabled, elderly, and infirm, which is shared with the fire department and the sheriff's department. And the purpose of that registry is exactly for what you said. In case of an emergency, that there would be a record of, who needs special help, who needs help maybe getting out of a building because of a wheelchair, or who needs, special issues of medication, things of that nature.
And it's a good point, but also remember that with our seniors as well, when we have a disaster, whatever it is, earthquake is probably what's going to be our big disaster, we're going to have seniors who are injured in some way or disabled from that alone. I mean, they might not have a walker or a cane, but boom, something falls on them, they're hurt, they're injured. We just have to know the best we can where everybody is.
So I guess my point in bringing it up, though, is perhaps it would be a good idea to see how well it is ready to be implemented. I also want to mention
let me mention then that I talked with Carl Goldman about this, and he's evolving that disaster coalition again, and I think everybody in this room should start listening, putting their ears up and their antennae up, because I know, wants to do something like this and wants to assure that if disaster happens, there's going to be a lot of things going on and lots of people in need, but there needs to be a focus of people who are saying, I have to go after the seniors. I have to make sure they have their medication. I have to make sure that they have an extra pair of glasses, or they haven't lost their dentures. Things like that. They might be small things, but to them, they're survival things, and they're going to need an effort on outside people to help them out.
I have two more points, if I may.
Sure.
There was a senior transitional care / nursing home supposedly going to be built next to the senior apartments on Flying Tiger here in Canyon Country. I don't know whatever happened to that project, but I know it had been in the works, and the land was approved. They even filled in a portion of it. So it would be good for some of us to find out what's happened with that, because it was supposed to be right next to the Flying Tiger senior apartments, so that the people that live in those apartments, when they go to the hospital, as you said, don't have any place to go, could go right there before they're able to go back into living into their own apartments.
The committee that we had through City Council, we were looking at land. We had people who might want to invest. Of course, this was in 2008, and as soon as everything went, then we ended up not being the investors pulled back. But we were looking across from Foster's Freeze, that intersection, Soledad, and there's an area back there where there was a hospital there,
Right.
Golden
Triangle.
And when they looked at that, asbestos was there, and the cost to tear it down in a way the state would want us to do it was way too costly. So that did not happen either. And that's why, I do think board and care, the idea of a board and care, looking at using those facilities that already exist, and then trying to evolve some scholarship program for those people who can't afford it. I've talked to a lot of the board and care owners, and they're more than willing to play a role and help out in this. And they're more than willing to, instead of a monthly basis, do it on even a weekly basis, to make sure that they can get somebody through the transition of then going home. So ideas and solutions have to evolve on this. Having a transitional care like we had at the hospital would be great, but I'm not seeing that on the horizon at all.
And my last point was, part of the problem with board and care facilities is there's a discrepancy between what the federal government allows and what the state of California allows. For instance, according to the federal government, a private residence can be used as quote unquote a board and care, and that disabled person will receive a little higher rate. If they are, you can have up to 2 unrelated people in your home. State of California only allows that rate if you are related to the person. And I think that makes it really difficult for people who don't have family who can take them in.
Yeah.
So addressing some of those discrepancies would help.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's there are huge problems, and we talk about who's in charge from the federal, the state, the county, the local. I mean, there's red tape all over the place, and it's I'm a firm believer that government has extended themselves too far, but they have extended themselves too far because they've made everything too complicated. And when they slice that down a little bit, I think costs will come down as well. As I mentioned, 1,900 pages, the Affordable Care Act, up to 2,200 pages, which has evolved. From that has evolved, I think, 30,000 pages, something like that. I mean, it's crazy. And in reading it, I can read legalese, but it would go, you'd read a page and it would refer to something in the back, and you'd come back, and then you have to move forward, and you go back. Simplify America, that's what we need to do. I think Jimmy Carter tried to cut down on paper, and we did that. Why can't we find better ways of simplifying? And you'll get a pretty good idea, my thought process on taxes, the tax code, about this high off the ground. And if you make an error in volume 14, page 267, second paragraph, third sentence, you go to jail. That's a possibility. And that kind of thing is crazy. I like flat tax. I think that Forbes is right. There's so many really good ideas out there, and if you try to make it a Republican thing or Democratic thing or a Tea Party thing, I say go with the logic, try to figure out what could be the best thing, and simplifying is what we should do. But I think when they make it complicated, they're doing it intentionally, so we do not understand, and I don't think that it helps the people of this country move forward. Yes,
Dr. Dorio, Spence Leafdale. I, too, was on that committee with you for the Transitional Care Unit in 2008. And so I'm really, really pleased that you're here tonight and you're bringing up these issues, because I believe that they are going to be integral not only to this campaign, but to the following campaign as well.
Good sense.
As I grow older, that's really what I want to be able to do. When those days are over, I asked both my son and my daughter to make sure on my headstone they inscribed, "This was not my idea." But when you first started, you talked about the 911 calls. Mm-hmm. So my question is it the call they're concerned about or the response?
The caller, the senior.
No. Is it the call that they make they're concerned about, or the response that they have to pay for?
The response, the cost that they have to pay if they call 911. They're all worried about it. One patient, diabetic, got up at 3 in the morning, had to go to the bathroom, stubbed his foot. An hour later, he can't sleep, and he knows something's wrong with his foot, broken. He calls 911 as he can see it's all red and swollen and bleeding. So calls 911, goes in, they take x-rays, they patch it up, looks good, and they say, well, you're going home. And he thought, that means I have to pay the $800 or more
for the ambulance.
And
but
he
not
then
the call.
then he told the emergency room doctor, but my chest pain is getting worse.
At any
And-
rate, thank you very much.
You're
for
welcome.
coming
And, you know, just to finish that story, I asked him the next day, Spence, about his chest pain, and he told me this story, and he said he's the one, and many of my seniors have told me this, and just ask your friends. They are reluctant to call 911, and I just don't think it should be up to them. Let the doctors, the professional people, make that decision after they've evaluated them. But don't let them worry about the money part of it. Question.
I have two questions. I've lived out here for 35 years, and I have never heard of that list. And is that one of those secrets that you have to figure out how to find out how to get seniors on the list in case of disaster? I'm not a senior then. Way cool. And you'll share that information with me, won't you? Okay. And I have a question for Mr. Hewitt. Where in the world did you get that picture that's on the your first slide? The one with all the water and all the beautiful trees and everything? Again, I've lived out here for 35 years, and I've never seen the river look like that. Where? I mean, it's not in the Santa Clarita Valley. Really?
All right. So let's give Dr. Dorio a hand. Doing much better.